I'm Dan.
And I'm Alex, and welcome back to On Air with Dan and Alex, now ranking well above the top 1.5% thanks to you guys, our amazing listeners. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm relaxing in the sunshine. Well, I'm not in the sun right now, but I am in the Maldives. I love that we now have 2 on-air episodes of me from the Maldives. I think that's an appropriate amount of Maldives episodes in a year and a half.
It is. How are you getting on over there? I've been thinking of you just lounging about, but also knowing that you find it very hard to switch off. We both share that little trait, and Maldives is quite literally the definition of the place where you are supposed to switch off.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't help but wonder, have you switched off? Because even if you have, we're switching you back on for this episode.
Yeah, I think there's you can force yourself not to actively work, but it's much harder to force your mind to stop, right? So although I've been lounging in our private pool or reading or snorkeling, as I'm snorkeling and looking at the fish, and normally my mind is I'm very present and I love snorkeling. Now I'm snorkeling along and I'm thinking about business and numbers and this video and that video. And yeah, it's, I don't know. Sometimes you just have to try, and then hopefully eventually you'll be able to relax. I don't know.
What's it like being there at this time of year?
Well, this
is obviously the pre-rush, right? So before everyone goes for Christmas and New Year.
So luckily my resort only has about 50% occupancy right now, which is very nice.
That's good.
And every time I go to a hotel like this, since the White Lotus, it's kind of ruined because, not ruined from the perspective of me enjoying it, just I'm so self-conscious and I'm so conscious about all the other guests and the interactions with the staff and how everything kind of feels fake and staff are just, I don't know. I get this weird feeling when you go to an uber luxury hotel now. But I guess it's good that we have this perspective. So I try to be super nice. I mean, not that I'm not usually nice. I was
going to say, that's, I'll come to your defense there. If you are just yourself, you are genuinely very kind. And also you can tell a lot always about a person by the way in which they interact with staff, for example, in whether it's, buying something in a supermarket or being in a hotel. So the fact that you're conscious about it, I don't know what that series has done to your head, but is it just because you feel aware that the staff are told, smile at the guest, please the guest, say yes to the guest, greet the guest with good morning so it doesn't feel natural? Yeah,
and it's so White Lotus because every time you go to the Maldives, most resorts, you pull up in a speed plane or a boat and the staff is just there waving to you on the jetty, 10 people waving, and it's very performative. So I don't know, I struggle. I love the performance, but I also struggle a bit with it. And I'm just I wish we could just be real and you guys could just, that's what I love about airlines like Singapore Airlines, that though it's very formal, the crew can also most of the time be so funny and chill. And you feel like they're just enjoying themselves and being very genuine, which is I think the most difficult thing to do when it comes to something that's supposed to be luxury, but still being able to keep it casual. And also I have to add that that's the problem when something is supposed to be very luxurious like this and you're spending so much money, it's so hard to not sometimes be disappointed by some things. Oh, well, I wonder why this was like this when I paid so much for that excursion or whatever. But then I just have to remind myself, it's okay. I don't need to make a big deal out of it. But anyway, overall, it's been amazing. Long rant.
When you are quite a resident at the Maldives in general across a variety of the islands. You've done the Waldorf Astorias and the super high end category, and also you've done the more low key ones. I remember watching a YouTube video a couple of years back of
you were
the more low key one. That was fun. Anyway, but do you think because you have that, so much about it, when you expect, or not even just expect, when you know what's coming, it is difficult to feel that special feeling that you had the first time round when you didn't know. There's a beauty in not knowing. And, you and I, again, we're kind of type A, slightly control freaky because we are able to know things about, the travel process and things like that. And it's funny because my friends that were traveling recently for the first time in business class, I was so tempted. I was writing them, make sure you do this, make sure you ask for that. And then I realized that the instructions were crazy because I was giving away too much of what was going to happen 3 hours into the flight or 4 hours. And I was thinking, no, I want them to experience that very natural surprise of when they bring over the pajamas or when they ask if they would like the turn down service for them to go to bed. At the same time, I didn't want them to end up with a random crew member who, because she was having a bad day or he was having a bad day, forgot to mention it, So I was like, what do? I don't want to put everything in a message and say, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this at the same. So I just trusted the process, right? I trusted that, and it worked out really well, because then when I caught up with my friend after, he was saying to me how, it was amazing. And that, after dinner, the fact that I was falling asleep and they came and they said, before you sleep, let us offer a full turn down service for the evening. And they put the blind down and chocolates and bedding. And he was so shocked that was even a thing. And I was thinking, okay, I'm so glad I didn't go into every single detail in the type A control freak that I am in order to let that happen naturally, because I would have removed that special moment. He would have known what was coming.
Yeah, I relate to that so hard, and that constant struggle of wanting your loved ones or your close friends to have as good experiences as possible. So you're always worried that what if they don't get that part, or what if they, they're not informed about it, like you said. So I usually I'm on the bad side and I just tell them, make sure you get this, make sure you get this. Sometimes I forget because I don't have time. And then afterwards I'm like, ask them how it was. And then several times it's happened that the experience has been so much worse because I didn't tell them and they didn't even know they could get this or that. And I'm like, no, what have I done? So
yeah. God, I feel that sense of responsibility everywhere. Emmy came round last night and she was saying to me, she's just been in Qatar. She was saying to me, I only knew on the last day that the bakery that you were sending us to every morning had outdoor seating. And I said, no, because I've never sat inside, so I couldn't even imagine that she sat inside. She said, no, it was fine. We found it after. And I was thinking, oh God,
that's so frustrating.
You visualize and you just think you want it to go a certain way.
Yeah.
And she said to me, I did wonder when we were sat inside, like, okay, this is kind of a random recommendation for Alex. But of course, when she saw the outside, it made full sense. I didn't specify that because I thought it was a safe bet that she'd notice the outside, but these things happen.
Yeah. It's a really tough one. And that, it makes me think of then when for ourselves as well, we kind of know what to expect. So every time we go into flying an airline we've flown many times in a premium cabin, for example, or we go to a certain level of hotel, like, here in the Maldives, how good it can be. So then when you don't see that, it's very noticeable immediately. If you're used to getting offered a hot towel after your meal and then suddenly you don't on one flight, you're like, wait, what's going on here? And if you didn't know, you wouldn't care. But because we know, it ends up being a curse, and we end up constantly feeling like, but wait, what happened to that?
Yeah, I remember flying, or speaking about flying with you for the first time. Flying with you was a different scenario, but speaking about flying with you on not a delivery, but an actual commercial flight, and realizing, oh God, both of us know exactly what to expect. So instead of relaxing into the experience, we're going to be like, did you notice how long they took to bring that hot towel? Or did you,
this is why
the way that
this is why we need to be hired as consultants / airline, I don't want to say spies, but investigators who go on board, because we know exactly how it's supposed to be. So send us on the flights and we will, make sure that things are as good as they can.
There's funny things, because I always find it astounding how little airline customer experience executives in-house airlines, how little they know of what is happening with the rest of the world's airlines, because when an individual works for an airline, they only ever fly that airline, right? Especially if it's an airline that goes long haul, so they're able to fly everywhere. And so it's always fascinating for me when I sit down with those different execs and I say, oh, that carpet or that curtain choice was a terrible decision for LATAM back in 2016, because they noticed that whenever they spilled coffee on it, blah, 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 or the way it used to dangle during turbulence here, and so they opted for this. And they're sitting there like, Well, that's, we never knew that. And that happens all the time. And I'm always astounded, as I said, how little they know. I feel like in order to be a very successful airline experience exec in charge of designing the experience for passengers, that individual has to be incredibly well traveled on every other airline but the airline they fly on in order to know where the bar is, I don't mean where the bar is located on the aircraft, but that too, but in order to know where the benchmark is, and who's doing what and what's working well for others. Of course, in reality, that doesn't happen. You don't get an in-house customer experience executive at, for example, Emirates, frequently flying around the world on Singapore, then Qantas, then LATAM, then American, then Delta, then Air France. It just doesn't happen.
Especially at very global airlines where you can get anywhere you need on that airline. That's part of the problem. But it would be very healthy. And I think what a lot of CEOs and people miss is that they look at what you see on paper. So let's say a US airline executive who's getting paid $30+ million a year, he might know quite a bit about what Middle Eastern airlines offer on paper, for example, but being on board is a totally different experience. And you can learn a lot of things about things you can do that don't necessarily cost more, but just make the experience so much nicer, and things that don't even take that much more effort on the crew's part. But it's
the design to the service, isn't it? And that's not something that is tangible and physical, but it's that what they call the soft product.
Yeah, but it is really shocking how many people you meet. And even, people are supposed to, their job is like to evaluate performance, or they've literally been hired for stuff like that. Consultants, for example, who also don't have the experience of being in those positions as a paying customer, because it's even very different to be sent, let's say, as an airline employee, hey, I'm going to pay for your ticket to try Emirates. That's totally different from spending thousands of your own dollars on a ticket. The feeling you'll have of, was this worth it? Do I feel like I got value for my money, kind of thing? And luckily I'll have left this resort by the time this goes live, so I can say this. But the manager here, for example, there was one time we had like an incident with a meal. So she ended up coming over. And basically we noticed very quickly that this woman who told us she'd worked in hospitality for 42 years in hotels has literally probably never been a paying guest at this type of resort. And it was so obvious compared to last year when we were at the W in the Maldives. And then the manager you could tell like immediately he had been a paying guest before. The way every Thursday he had like invited all the guests to drinks, free drinks on the hotel. And he just spoke to everyone to get feedback. And it's the way you frame your feedback. For example, what can we not do you love it? Are you having a great time? Are you enjoying yourself? More like, I hope you're loving it, but what can we do better? What is there things you've reacted to that are not as good as you expected? Because then you invite feedback instead of priming people by saying something positive. Then you're not actually inquiring. And the type of questions you ask will also show how much experience you have being in the customer's position. So we could go on about this for a long time, but anyway.
So true. Fixer-uppers. We get not just at airlines, but at hotels as well. But I do think in order for it to be a successful working trip, I'd have to be there on the ground in the Maldives with you, Dan, just to ensure that the hotel was going above and beyond and meeting expectations. Exactly. It's too much work to leave you to do that by yourself. So just let me know how you'd like me to position out, and I guess I'll make it work. Yeah,
sounds good. Okay, next time.
Speaking of, we were touching lightly on passenger experience, and Oscar has just messaged me now as we're recording. He's reacting to the story because I posted my compliments to Pauline, British Airways legend in the first wing, who we've spoken about before on the podcast because I've known her for years.
Airline employee on the podcast, probably.
Most mentioned airline employee, Pauline, the legend at British Airways. I've flown quite a few sectors over the last week or so, and one of them, no better person to see at 4:45 a.m. than walking into the BA first wing and seeing Pauline. Bless her. And one thing that I love is how much recognition senior management at British Airways give employees when the employees are genuinely complimented via the feedback forms, via email, via social media or whatever. She said to me she's invited, as we spoke about before, to the Thank You Fest thing. She says that every time a passenger writes in, they're literally informed sometimes the same day, but definitely the next day. So it's really nice. It was great to see her. She sends her regards to the listening community. we spoke briefly about how she's so well known, and also all the other staff in the first wing were saying that they watch in fascination at the sheer number of frequent flyers that come in and they go straight over to Pauline because they've known her for years. And so it was really nice to see her. So I posted a photo with her on my Insta story, and within minutes somebody replied. I'm going to get the name. Someone replied, Inez, and let's see. And Inez put, this is the first time she's messaged. She's put, I was just listening to some of the old on-air episodes, and in one of them, one of the earlier ones, you spoke about her and gave her such a huge shout out. So glad to see you guys are reunited now. So sweet. And I just thought that's amazing. Within minutes, she was able to recognize the exact individual, because I think we mentioned her about a year ago or so. And so it did lead me to once again reaffirm the fact that, yes, we do have the best listeners ever who have been so great with the questions and the feedback and the kind of the community spirit, whether it's to do with dimmable windows or the way in which we check the scales and don't just take the first reading when the ground staff say your bag is overweight. You know, it's been a movement, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay, now that we're speaking of our amazing listeners, I'll say it now. I wanted to say it at the end, but I have a Christmas present for them and for you. The Qatar video is done. I have watched it. It is amazing. So I'm trying to decide when to post it. Should it go live like on Christmas as a present? Should it go live sooner, or we'll discuss it after. But yeah, it's gonna be a good one, guys.
I'm speechless. I mean, it's a Christmas miracle. I'm not sure that is. So wait, describe it. Tell me, what can we expect from this video?
We can expect a lot of jokes, a lot of laughs, a lot of humor, some serious reflections, and maybe some inspiration to take a friend or a loved one on a flight together and have a nice gossip sesh in a Q suite or in first class and get in the Christmas spirit of being with people you
Merry
appreciate.
Christmas, Dan.
Merry Christmas, Kevin. Oh my god,
wow.
I watch Home Alone
that really
so badly.
Caught me by surprise. Well, this is the time of year to start watching it. Whip out the Disney Plus subscription. If you don't have one, you can use mine. I'll send you the login after the episode.
Well, you know what? I'm flying home. I'm flying to Sweden through Dubai, and I have eyed that Home Alone is being played in movie theaters in Dubai. So I'm gonna go see it in the movies during the few days.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice, because it's the sound quality that you need. You know, I'm gonna have to search if that's. I wanted to be in London, in the UK, for the time that they do the live screening of Home Alone with the live orchestra beneath at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
But it's only ever for one night, and we've already missed it. But it's just one night. I am convinced they could sell that out if they did it for 10 consecutive nights.
Yeah,
but that's
they should show. I don't know why it's not a thing to show seasonal movies in movie theaters more. I think it's genius. I would pay
a good idea.
all
it's
times
a great
a year.
Use of,
all times a year.
Yeah, because you need the sound. That's what I want more than anything, especially in those those films. It's
but just the
this
feeling
is a good
too, you know. And then if you've ever watched, I'm sure you've done this. I've done it a lot of times. When you watch a movie for the first time on a plane, and then eventually you watch it again, like on a bigger screen, and you're like, oh, I get it now. But on a plane, it felt so underwhelming because the quality is low, or the screen was tiny because you were in economy. So yeah.
You're right. Sometimes it's a nice way to discover new stuff on aircraft, because in the age of streaming where we think we know everything, it is astounding to me still that we have never had more options in terms of consuming film and TV, right? With all these endless streaming platforms, and still, I don't know about you, but I conclude most nights, nothing. There's nothing to watch. Everything is rubbish or underwhelming. watched a really nice film, which is I recommend actually, really nice. It's called The Green Book. Have you seen it?
Oh my God, that's an iconic movie. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, okay,
long
good. You've
ago,
seen it.
but
Okay,
I don't really remember.
Yeah, really nice. Kind of in the hidden figures category, The Help, that kind of category about segregation in America, and but just really nice story. And also, when you watch those films that were made quite a few years ago, I mean, it's not a very old film, but quite a few years ago.
2018, apparently. I feel like it's ancient for some reason.
But the quality difference is just monumental. You know, they're not worried about AI bullshit and and stupidly fast-paced storylines with endless characters that are meaningless, or the fact that nothing happens for episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and everything happens in episode 7, so we were watching 6 hours of pointless context. Well, I could also talk about that for a long time.
Now in the Maldives, Oscar and I finally had time to catch up, and we watched The Perfect Couple, which we were talking about. Obviously, I'm behind.
With Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was good. Quite White Lotus-esque as well.
I know.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Again, a couple of the episodes are a bit of a drag, and then it only leaves you feeling all right because something happens in the last 35 seconds. So you think, okay, at least there was some development. But it was good. What did you think of the intro with that dance?
Oh my God, I love it. Such an unusual intro, but I also I just loved Nicole Kidman in it. I thought most of the cast was good, and the setting, it was all very nice.
I feel like Nicole Kidman doesn't act anymore. I feel like that's just her go-to that's just her in every film. She just plays a very, very similar character now throughout.
She deserves it.
That's good.
She's had a long career.
So you can fly back to Europe for Christmas and be getting cozy, watching some decent Christmas films. And actually, I always like it when I see the airlines announce decent collaboration. So for example, Cathay Pacific, right, of Hong Kong. Hong Kong hasn't had its moment ever since the pandemic, okay? It's lost its spark. You said to me that you still feel passion for Hong Kong when you're there. You still feel that there is evidence of what you loved prior COVID still there today, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not dead like people make it sound. It's very much alive.
Okay, and well, Cathay Pacific has literally been brought back from the dead as an airline because they just disappeared into oblivion. Now they finally, 2024, the last period of 2024, are firmly, bringing back commercial aircraft into service, resuming routes, shaking up the menu a bit, finding their feet, remembering they're an airline, and it's good to see. One of the nice collabs I think they have is with Disney Plus on their IFE. So they have a lot of Disney films, which is not just, we're not just talking like Disney and Pixar and the family ones, but also the adult ones as well. Not adult films, but films that are up 16 plus, 18 plus, whatever. And it's just interesting to see them invest with what is a very premium product in terms of how it's being sold to the market as Disney Plus and integrate it into the IFE. What do you think? Do you think we will see more of that next year? Will we see, the exclusive deals with Paramount and Air Canada or HBO and whatever?
I mean,
or
HBO
is it just
has been doing this for a while, right? I mean, several airlines have it, but
it hasn't cottoned on like in Europe. It hasn't caught on.
No. But what about, where's Netflix, the biggest? Like, why are they not on?
And that was what I was building up to. That's what I was building up to. I mean, would you welcome the news of this airline has basically got Netflix? And Netflix in what we know on TV, but on the IFE.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. That would be amazing. I guess now that, for example, Qatar is introducing Starlink, having a full streaming library is even easier. So hopefully soon we'll be able to log into our own streaming platforms, whatever we have, and watch on board,
Well, that's part of the plan. I mean, Zia, who is one of the guest experience extraordinaires at Qatar Airways, she was explaining to me that although Starlink enables everyone to now, bring your iPads, bring your own devices and do as you would at home and watch whatever you want, and maybe, it almost eliminates the need to turn on the screen, because if you come up, you don't need to download, you can stream everything on your own devices. She said to me that they are now actively finalizing their plans to upgrade the in-flight entertainment significantly being able to leverage the fact that there is Starlink Wi-Fi on board. So now the IFE will have new opportunities for streaming, will have things like Netflix, it will have live TV and news and sports and so on embedded into the screen, because they recognize that it is great to be able to bring your own devices and have Starlink super fast, crazy fast Wi-Fi, but it is also nice to be able to keep your iPad in the bag and enjoy a unique, quality, rich in-flight entertainment experience via the screen in front of you.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's better. And obviously the screen is bigger. There's already space for it. So sometimes you might be struggling to find a space to put your own device. So yeah, I think that's great. I want to go back quickly to what you said about adult films, because it brings us into another topic that was quite interesting this week, right? Do you want to tell us what happened?
No, it's okay. You can.
No, you do it, please.
So this is mad, but basically this news went everywhere, and so did the video. Don't ask us to send it to you because we won't be doing that. But a Swiss flight crew of Swiss, the national airline of Switzerland, and when I say flight crew, I mean pilots, they are in trouble along with some of the crew. I mean, they're facing serious disciplinary action because they filmed 2 passengers engaging in a sex act in the forward galley where nobody else was about. To put things into context, this was a Swiss flight, 12 hours on a 777 between Bangkok and Zurich, right? No puns to be made there. First class has a galley. The galley is the very front of the aircraft. And that galley, what you'll find on the 777 is you'll find the working area, basically the small working kitchen, if you like, for the cabin crew. And usually, and I believe this is the case on Swiss's configuration, let me just check. Yes, it is. 2 lavatories, left and right, in a narrow corridor, very narrow, shallow corridor, which at the end of it, you're facing the cockpit door. So if you face forward, you're facing the cockpit door, left lavatory, right lavatory. The one on the left is usually on the 777 a little bit bigger than the one on the right. So there should always be, by most airline policies, a member of the cabin crew present in every galley at any given time of the flight. We know this is very often not the case for so many airlines. The Americans entered the chat. You fly on, or even the North Americans. Hi, Canada, you too, right? I was surprised, as we spoke about earlier in the summer, when I had to fly Air Canada quite a bit, that halfway through the flight, when I wandered just 10 steps into the forward galley ahead of business class, there's no one there, right? Because they're all, and then I went to the second galley, there's no one there either. So they're all huddled together, gossiping at the back. Okay, I find that unusual and also potentially a safety hazard. Most airlines are of that same belief. So you typically always have one member of cabin crew there. In this scenario, we don't know why, we don't know how, but there were no crew present in the forward galley, enabling 2 passengers, unclear from what cabin they had come from, whether they had come from the first class cabin, so they were just there, or maybe they were in business, or premium, economy, wherever. They had come up to the forward galley, closed the curtain, positioned themselves next to the exit door. In aviation, it's known as door 1L, the first left side door. That's where the crew seat is that folds down. There's a kind of little space. You're probably familiar with it if you've ever waited to go to the bathroom on an aircraft and someone's been in the lav. Maybe you stand there to keep out the way of the crew. There's no crew about, and the 2 passengers begin to engage in a sex act. The flight crew are able to see this because on the cockpit door, there is a camera in order to identify who would like access into the flight deck. So when a crew goes to present the meal to the pilots or to go for an important update regarding weather or anything else, they put in the code, they wait, the flight crew, the pilots, check a screen in the cockpit to see who's at the door. When they can see that it's one of their colleagues, they unlock the door and the colleague walks in. So they can see on the camera, not a colleague, but they can see the 2 individuals, passengers, engaging in this sex act. What do they then proceed to do while they are flying the aircraft en route from Thailand to Switzerland? They start to film it. So they film almost all of this sex act, right? And then when these two finish up and make their way back to, and you can hear the flight crew laughing in the video, which again is, I mean, deeply unprofessional. They are flying the aircraft. When these two passengers leave the galley, they're not interrupted at any given time. They're not told, by a cabin crew, what are you doing? The pilots don't pick up the phone to inform the purser to say, hold on, there's two people getting it on and we're watching live from the live feed from the cockpit door. None of that happens. Instead, they film it. They send it to some colleagues. It makes its way from group chat to group chat to group chat. And before you know it, 10 days later, they're being featured on Air with Dan and Alex.
Congratulations, guys.
That is the story. That is what has happened. I hope I described it well. I'll now come to you for your thoughts.
I mean, it's crazy on so many levels. First of all, who joins the Mile High Club in the galley? Who are those psychopaths who are just like, you know what? Let's just do it out in the open. Yeah, let's just do it right here where the crew prepare the meals. That's a great idea. Second of all, I don't think that, obviously they shouldn't have been recorded, but if you're going to do it that publicly, you need to understand that anything can happen. On the other hand, what are the pilots doing? Their job is safety on the aircraft. So they might think it's worth, a little giggle to see that happening in the galley, but it's very unprofessional of them to not alert the crew immediately and have them step in and tell them, you know what, let's get out of here. This is the crew's space. You're not supposed to be hanging around, especially outside the cockpit doors. So very problematic on many levels, but yeah, it's interesting. This is the first time we've had a big story like this after all these years of smartphones and everyone having access to cameras at all times,
all these years of bad behaviors.
Yeah.
Well, Swiss is angry about the what has happened, and of course Swiss are specifically angry at their staff, right? Not least the passengers that got it on, but the staff. This is what a Swiss spokesperson has said. They've said filming people, so this is to quote, filming people without their clear consent and sharing these recordings contradicts our guidelines and values and violates the applicable data protection regulations. This also applies on board. Our crew are known for their professionalism. We trust in the competence of our crew and are confident in their abilities. The cameras do not record anything, and filming of the monitor by the cockpit crew is only permitted in exceptional cases, for example, to document safety-related incidents. Swiss later then reiterated that they've posted a message on their internal website, the intra site for employees, saying that this has been taken incredibly seriously. They are taking serious action against the crew, including the crew that seemingly abandoned the first class galley. They have warned employees against any further distribution of the video, or they will feel the full force of the law and also ultimately be fired. The airline also called the action of passengers completely unacceptable, and they stated that, well, they wanted to remind everyone, quote, our passengers' behaviour is generally respectful and appropriate, but that wasn't the case on this flight. But as I say, I mean, this is the scenario where I was less focused on the two and more focused on how could, all these other stakeholders have allowed this. I actually wondered if this was kind of planned, if maybe, they had known a member of the cabin crew who had reassured them that no one's going to go up to the first class galley for the next 30 minutes, enjoy or something like that. Because I just found it hard to believe that then the flight crew wouldn't have reacted in shock and called the person and said, get to that guy. Because the flight crew, had they done that, they would have still had their jobs now, and the purser and potentially other crew members would have been fired for their lack of ultimately, doing their job and being present. But they were in on it. So I feel this only happens if all of them are in on it.
Exactly. Very weird story. Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
Swiftly on. I want to know some of your predictions for next year. Given that this is going to be the final episode of the year and of the 2024 season as we go on a Christmas break, and all being well, we'll be back with you in the new year. But speaking of new year, I want to get a few predictions for you, just some light ones in regards to what you think we'll see in the airline space, right? So nothing too I don't have to pull you up on it in 6 months' time, but I just want to know where your feelings are for 2025 and what you think airlines will be doing.
So my first thought is 777X not going to look so good next year. Well, who knows? We have a new administration coming in the US, but yeah, I'm not feeling super hopeful for the 777X and its development next year. Obviously,
that's
we're
fair.
supposed to get close, right? Do you agree?
I do. I think the fact that we've had so much silence from Boeing regarding the 777X is people continuing with their lives and forgetting that they haven't spoken yet about it, which to me signals that something is wrong. So I think we're going to see some developments there with the 777X that will ultimately impact it in a negative way in terms of the timeline, the delivery, blah, blah, blah.
Do you think that Boeing is being so quiet because they're like, we don't want to get Trump's attention? Like, we're such a mess. We don't want any attention on us right now. We'll keep it
potentially
low.
Because their silence at the moment is deafening. I mean, they really are not. They're keeping a very low profile. And you're right. That's probably linked with the fact that there's about to be once again a monumental shift in the US. And they're worried that, it was just 5 minutes ago, Trump was calling them batshit Boeing and, all of this. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are, pretty scared.
Actually, if Trump does one thing, can he please bring back the praying mantis 757 Neo? We would love that, right? 757 Max. Let's go.
You would. I mean, I'm okay. I'm fine with the 321 XLR.
The 757 is such a beautiful plane. You cannot deny it.
It is, but it's like, it's beautiful, but it's done. I don't need it. I don't need it going forward. More A350-1000s? Sure.
Yeah.
But 757 with some slightly more powerful engines? I mean, that worked great for the 737 Max. It's like,
yeah. So another prediction I have is that demand will continue to be slightly weaker than we've seen these past few years. It could still be, record numbers during certain periods, but overall, I think based on what we're seeing now, a lot of flights are very empty. No?
I fully agree. We are now in that winter that we had warned about earlier, a few months ago in many of our episodes, and flights are definitely quieter. Again, the exception Thanksgiving, the exception Christmas, the exception New Year, and so on. But generally, airlines are quite worried about this winter. And then I think we will see a weaker spring, summer in terms of demand as well next year. And we're comparing that to a boom that we've had throughout 2022, 2023, and into 2024. So yeah, I think that's also a very fair prediction.
Yeah. What about you? What are your predictions?
So I have some specific ones I had noted down. So I think 2025 Ryanair CEO will warn us that fares will have to go up this year. I think he'll say that like he does every year. So I think that's a pretty safe bet. I think he'll warn that, he'll find some excuse in February or March. I'm bookmarking it from now that will say, oh, well, we've got to put our fares up in summer. I mean, they'll still be able to offer very, very low fares as they always have been able to do, but I just think that warning will be out there, and he'll choose to go with a network like Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal or whatever to get that message across and to take another swipe at Boeing. And I think that prediction will come the moment the situation with Boeing is a bit clearer. So maybe once Trump is in, and then we know if Boeing are doing all right or not. And if the case is that they're not doing so great, then I think we'll have Michael O'Leary once again leverage that and say, well, you see, now you're going to have to pay more to go to Tenerife and link it with something that actually otherwise, isn't very linked. But that's his strategy.
That's a good prediction.
I think Riyadh Air's launch will slip in terms of a delay to slightly later than previously expected.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the case to keep things interesting, but I just think through no fault of their own and through entirely the fault of suppliers, I just can't see how, for example, Riyadh Air will be up and running by summer. And remember that summer in aviation basically begins 31 March. So I know they've never committed to a date, but we would expect to have them flying at least by May if they're referring to summer 25. I just think that we're going to see it slip because of the supplier delays. And I also predict that a lot of the fanfare might quickly need a strong rebuild when people realize that the infrastructure in Saudi, specifically the airports, are not so designed for transit, and maybe that's why they're not focusing so much on the transit thing, and they're kind of conveying that they're going to be a point-to-point airline. I don't know, they surprise us, so we'll keep, I mean, I'm sure they'll keep us, interested and entertained, at least with the happenings there. What else did I note down? I noted down that AI chatbots will make it 10 times harder next year to actually speak to a human at an airline. I mean, airlines champion this, and I think this is just a disaster for the consumer. I just think it's getting increasingly difficult.
Have you seen this new thing about like AI phone support? So it sounds like you're talking to a human, but it's still a robot. And it's not just that. Press one. Can that just get in the
bin? Seriously, that's just it's just awful. It's not. We don't need. I need apps that can do things that I can, I need to be able to change my flights super easily as a breeze on the app. Wonderful. I need to be able to do things like, reassign my seat or upgrade or use points and all of this. That's what I need in terms of digitalization. I don't need a bot saying, did you see that we have this on our website? Of course I did. Of course I did. I don't want to be on the phone. Why am I on the phone? I'm on the phone as a last resort.
Exactly.
Right? Nothing more infuriating than calling and they say, everything that you need is available on our website. No, or I wouldn't be calling. The last thing I want to do is call you.
So
literally,
true.
The last thing I want to do is call you.
Yeah.
So I think AI will just make that worse rather than actually help. I think Lufthansa will keep confusing everyone with mediocre seat developments that'll be delayed until 2030. I think they'll
introduce the next generation, because it's time to, start speeding that up. If it needs to come out in 10 years, they need to release it now.
Right.
And start
they're working on it, yeah, I assume. So I just think that's a bit there. I think we'll see more airlines invest in premium products, make the switch to suites. As we've seen, this is definitely a nice, easy trend. I hope we see more airlines go for more innovation in economy, like the Sky Couch that we spoke about with Air New Zealand, and those. Also next year we should have the bed bunks, the bunk beds. Sounded like I said bed bugs.
I know.
Yeah, no, the bunk beds, hopefully bed bug free, on Air New Zealand. So that's an interesting development that we'll keep for. And I predict that if that is a success, we'll see other airlines go forward. And then I think what we'll do is, once we get a bit clearer and into the new year, we'll do some more predictions based on the state of play once we reach January.
Yep, that sounds very good. Of course, we hope that we have another safe year. This year, again, has been very safe for aviation overall, and things just get better and better, it seems like. So we just hope for another very safe year in 2025.
Definitely. To you, Dan, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and best wishes for 2025. To the listeners, I wish you a Merry Christmas and very best wishes for 2025. And for making the 2024 season for On Air so enjoyable that we genuinely look forward to it as the highlight of the week, every single week, week in, week out.
Yeah, thank you so much. We know that obviously there are a lot of Q&A questions outstanding right now. So if there's something you just want one of us to answer, you can just DM us and ask us to answer the question directly. And then when we come back, we'll try to do a ton of Q&A, because I'm sure there will be a lot. But we will leave you now and see you in the new year. But you'll be able to see us on YouTube in a very fun video. So it's not going to be completely silent in the on-air crowd.
I can't wait. I'm excited and dreading it.
Yeah. I'm still trying to decide, should I send it to you before or not?
Oh, please can I have an advance copy?
Yeah.
Just even if it's just the night before, when it's too late to edit, just to mentally prepare, some PR statements.
Oh my God, that makes me think, now that I'm in the perfect couple mindset, Enid, please, I need help. Because our publisher is called Enid.
And also all of the NDAs, don't forget to make them sign loads of NDAs. Yeah. You did not make me sign an NDA, which is, I guess, a promising sign. So I think I'll take that as a Christmas gift from you.
But keep in mind, you didn't make me sign one either. So.
Shit.
All right. Well, yeah, we will see you all next year. We wish you a very happy holidays, very happy new year. and see you next time on air. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. Right, send me a copy of that guitar video now.
Not gonna happen.